Hello and welcome to Liam's Library. I wasn't going to do a review tonight because I'm just completely glued to Mindhunter. I've just started watching Mindhunter on Netflix. I know I'm miles behind everybody by watching Mindhunter, but something occurred to me. I've always wanted to do a review on Stephen King's 2017 novel, The Outsider. And having just watched the TV series on HBO, and I fucking loved it, right? So it's time to talk about it. It's time to talk about The Outsider. Now, I read Stephen King's book Revival. Now, let's talk about Stephen King for a minute. Let's talk about how he started. Let's talk about Carrie. Let's talk about Shining. Let's talk about Salem's Lot. Let's talk about Night Shift and The Stand. His first 5 books, horror novels. Maybe not The Stand, but there's a lot of horror in it. Let's talk about how he started out trying to scare the living fuck out of us in his late 20s. Or mid-20s, however old he was when he published Carrie. I know he did it in 1976, but I can't remember exactly how old he was. Now, let's talk about Revival. Now, I've done a review on Revival. After all them years, he wrote this ultimate horror novel that just scares the living fuck out of you, and it just cements his position as the ultimate horror writer. Now, there was a period of time in like the late 1998, 1999, early 2000s where, Hearts in Atlantis, Insomnia, he was doing stuff that you really had to read hundreds of pages before you got your horror fix, before you got your Stephen King fix. And you know what? I look back at that now. At the time, I was very young and it was pissing me off. The book Desperation and the book Rose Madder are their own entities. So he wrote them in that time period and they were fucking terrifying. And they were horror novels as far as I'm concerned. But he had a period there where he went really, he wrote great novels, but he was trying to maybe steer a little bit away from the horror genre and not be so typed, even though, his entire beginning of his career was to be a horror novelist. And let's talk about now. Let's talk about the last 8 years. We've got Revival, which is a fucking supernatural horror story about a fucking multidimensional spider named Mother that kills us all in the afterlife and demands that she torture you for eternity. That is horror. And then I thought he couldn't top that. There's no way, this man is in his 70s. How the fuck is he going to top that? Well, he did. I was living on the streets. I was a full homeless person in the year 2017, but I managed to get myself a copy. I'm doing a lot better now, thank you. I managed to get myself a copy of his 2017 novel, The Outsider. And man, if I thought he'd slackened off, he hasn't, man. That book scared the living fuck out of me. It starts off your first 3 pages describing this crime, this murder of a child that is just so graphic. It fucks with you. You're like, oh my God, this is horrifying. Do I even want to continue with this? This is one of the greatest literary minds of our time. And he is describing the most horrific murder you could ever imagine. Plus, it's supernatural. So let's talk about The Outsider. Detective Ralph Anderson trying to solve this crime of this murdered boy. And as far as he's concerned, the crime is completely open and shut. The local Little League coach, he did it. Coach Terry did it. He has eyewitnesses, he has his blood, he has his fucking semen, he has his fucking fingerprints, and he arrests him in front of everybody at the local Little League game. But there's more to it. Because there's something out there, and it's The Outsider. It doesn't have another name than that. It's been around for maybe 100 years. We don't really get too much of a backstory, but it's not human, and it is able to take the form of a human person just so it can degrade, rape, and murder the innocent. Now, if that is not the basis for an extreme motherfucking horror novel, I don't know what is. So I read The Outsider, and it scared the living fuck out of me. It really did, and it just, like I said, it cemented King for me. I'm like, hell yeah, he's had his early times, the first 20 years where he gave us what we wanted. He gave us Christine Pet Cemetery, It. He gave us the Tommyknockers. He gave us The Stand. He gave us fucking Salem's Lot. And then he had his little period there where he gave us Insomnia, and he gave us, like fucking a few other things that were just meh. Hearts in Atlantis, man, great book. Don't get me wrong, great book. But especially as a person who was like a teenager at the time Hearts in Atlantis come out, I wanted a bit more. I was probably not mature enough to understand it. And then now in his old age, he's just giving us whatever we want. He's giving us what he's good at. He's gone back to his roots. And I think The Outsider completely speaks for that. It's not a big fucking brick that you can't drop on your foot because it's too big. It's such a great novel, and it's a horror novel. And the HBO series, Ben Mendelsohn, I think his name is, he's an Aussie actor, and he plays Detective Ralph Anderson. He's Pope in that movie Animal Kingdom. They did a Netflix series, it sucked. But he plays Detective Ralph Anderson perfectly. He's fucking, and I reckon if I read the book again, that's who I'd picture as Ralph. He just kills it, man. He kills it. But the book, The Outsider, there is a sequel. I reviewed it I talked about it the other day, If It Bleeds. It's only just come out. But, do yourself a favor. If you want to get fucking scared, click on a light or light a candle. Sit in your dark little room just with enough light burning to illuminate your pages and read The Outsider. Read it in 2 or 3 sittings because it's very fast-paced. It is a murder mystery, but it's also an extremely, extremely terrifying and graphic horror novel. And so I think it really speaks for Stephen King and his writing and the fact that he's doing whatever the fuck he wants to do right now. So yeah, The Outsider. Like I said, this is just a little bonus I chucked in. I didn't even know I was going to review The Outsider tonight. And I don't want to give too much away because it only came out 3 years ago. And plus, some people out there in Stephen King land might not have seen the HBO series yet. So I don't want to give too much away. All I'm going to say is it's horror, it's King, and it's fucking brutal and so fast-paced and such a good read. And it's got our favourite character, Holly Gibney, in there from the Mercedes trilogy. Enjoy yourself. Read the motherfucker. Have a great time with it. So like I always say, tune in because Friday I'm going to be doing Sometimes They Come Back by Stephen King and just talking all around that. So read some great books, watch some even better fucking movies, and please, especially in these terrible COVID times, look after one another. See ya.